The Murder Shelf Book Club contains disturbing content related to real-life crimes. Listener discretion is advised.
The families of the missing are rooted in place, unable to move forward without knowledge of the fate of their loved ones. While it hurts to learn someone we care about has died, it hurts more to not know what became of them. When we can grieve a death, most of us eventually recover enough to live fulfilling lives and maybe even discover joy again. But if an even slight possibility exists that the absent person is alive, then healing is impossible. The mystery is akin to an open wound, incessantly picked at, never allowed to heal. From A Tangled Web by Leslie Rule. Welcome to the Murder Shelf Book Club podcast. I am your host, Jill. This is episode 137, World Filled with Nuts, Part 1, on the true crime book, A Tangled Web by Leslie Rule. I am fresh back from CrimeCon, where I met so many of you, and it was delightful. You always fill my heart with friendship. Our meetup at the Embers Lounge Bar, it was fun with so many of our favorites hanging out too. Kristen Middleman of Othram, Cheryl Mack McCollum, Paul Holes, Brett and Alice of the Prosecutors, Anya and Kevin of the Murder Sheet, Joe Scott Morgan and his wife Kim, George Jared and Jennifer Burkholtz. So do you recall Silent Silhouette on the unsolved murder of Deborah Sue Williamson? Well, George and Jennifer are the authors. And this was really big for me. I actually got to attend a session this year. Since we had just covered the Aurora movie theater shooting, I went to hear the officer's presentation, which was powerful. A blow-by-blow account, time-stamped, of the law enforcement response, complete with 911 calls and police radio responses. Both inspiring and devastating. It showed a chaotic scene that unfolded with fate favoring the good guys who had so much training to rely on for scenarios just like this. And surprise, a special interview with the Aurora officers who presented at CrimeCon, Jad Lanigan and Mike Daly, is coming shortly. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a thing. I also visited the 720 Memorial in Aurora, with the 83 cranes slowly ascending upward, the cranes on top with translucent wings representing the 13 lives that were lost. It was incredibly moving, and it brought me to tears as I surveyed the sculpture. I posted a video on X, Facebook, and Instagram, and it just cuts off abruptly because my throat just closed up and I just couldn't speak anymore. So I do have pictures of this on my blog at www.murdershelfbookclub.com, July 2025. I also want to shout out to those of you who have shown me so much support. Documented 187, Christy Sharp, Jessica Cari, Sadie, Keely Clark Sleeper, and all of my new followers across social media. I see you as you hear me. Never doubt how much I appreciate all of you. And I have to say this, the United States is going through a very rough patch of late. And again, I want to reiterate that I welcome all speech. I am able to disagree and still treat others with respect and dignity, and I encourage you to also. Free speech is a God-given right. It does not stem from our government. And free speech is not violence. To quote Voltaire, "I do not agree with the word you say. I will defend to death your right to say it." And that is a founding principle of our government and our society. Other nations do not share this abundant right. And when you get into difficulties in other countries, you soon find that out. Tolerance is a great virtue, and being offended is not. So let's try to do better. Let's be a little kinder to each other. Let's listen before we talk. And this sounds funny coming from a podcaster who talks all the time, but I sincerely hope that we embrace each other as a community and tone down the rhetoric a few notches. So, more talk today. I also came home from CrimeCon, determined to do something about the Ellen Greenberg case. If you attended the Nancy Grace and Joseph Scott Morgan session, or if you read Nancy Grace's new book on Ellen Greenberg, she supposedly stabbed herself 20 times, 10 to the back of her head and neck, 13 years ago in Philadelphia when she was committing suicide. No. Joseph Scott Morgan believes that this is ludicrous, and it sounded really, really fishy to me. And after I read Nancy's book, What Happened to Ellen Greenberg, I agree. That is total bunk. As a Pennsylvanian, I feel I have an obligation to do something. This happened in my state. I would like to rally everybody, especially my fellow Pennsylvanians, but certainly everybody, to write, email, post on social media en masse, each of us knowing that we are not alone shouting into the wind. I think together we can make a huge impression that this is not going to be ignored by our elected officials, nor the DOJ and the FBI. We will be heard. And to this end, I have collected all the contact information for the federal government, my state government, with emails, addresses, social media, and phone numbers. If you are interested in joining this effort, just email me at jill@murdershelfbookclub.com. I will gather the emails that will never be sold to anybody, I promise you, and I'll contact you so we can have a massive Zoom meeting, only so that we know that we are not alone. But email me, and I will send you the contact information regardless. Together, we can make a huge impression that 13 years after Ellen Greenberg's death, she will not be ignored. Now, something else happening here in Pennsylvania. Cheryl Mack McCullum of Zone 7 CSI Atlanta, a dear friend of mine, is hosting Wildlife CSI in Halifax at the Lake Tobias Wildlife Park, Thursday, October 2nd and Friday, October 3rd. You can get tickets to this on eventbrite.com. Now, you may remember I went to the Georgia-based Wildlife CSI in June, and it was absolutely thrilling and unbelievable. I mean, you get wildlife animals and wine and crime too, right? Now, police officer training is Thursday morning, and do not hesitate to let your locals know that this is happening. I'm telling you, this will really change your life and your perspective entirely. All right, a little bit more about CrimeCon. There were really wonderful people there. Chris Hansen. Chris was there, of course, who is mentioned in Rod Sadler's book, Depraved Obsession, this being his first case in dealing with pedophiles, in this case, a serial killer pedophile. If you haven't already listened, it's really good, episode 134. And Cheryl McCollum, of course, always teaches something remarkable, adding her own special humor and depth to her presentations. Nancy Grace, the nicest person on the planet, never leaves until she has spoken with every last person in that meet and greet line. Julia Cowley, host of The Consult, Real FBI Profilers, is truly a sister from another mister. We had a great time talking. And the kickoff party, themed campfire, was so much fun. The Clue Awards, well, that got me into a cocktail dress and heels, so that tells you something. And congratulations to all of the winners for their amazing achievements. And I came away from this absolutely assured that I have the most wonderful murder bookies. It is always a pleasure to meet you, take photos, hang out, and theorize. Oh, and more shout outs to Tara T-Bird, Connie, Missy, Erica, Tanya, Diana Ortez, Dean Brett, Mkagli, Mkaggl, did I say that right? And Alan Galley. Now, we're going to get started here, I promise. But it is book club time, and I have found a really simple, delicious appetizer from Iowa, Iowan Party Bites. All right, so to make them, you preheat your oven and you line a cookie sheet with cup-shaped Tostitos. Yep, just Tostitos. In a bowl, you mix cream cheese, mozzarella, corn, chilies, an egg, garlic, salt, and pepper. Feel free to adjust the spices to taste. You then spoon the mixture into the Tostitos and top with grated Parmesan cheese. And 13 to 15 minutes later, they are done. Now, after they cool, go pour yourself a glass of Naked Wine's Arabella Chardonnay Reserve 2022 from Stefan and Jamie DeWitt Vineyard. This is a perfect pairing with the cheese and the corn, and this Chardonnay features a lovely golden hue that perfectly balances the notes of citrus, pear, maybe tangerine, culminating in a fresh, crisp finish. Its smooth, buttery texture is complemented by the subtle oak notes, making this an excellent choice for both Chardonnay enthusiasts and the casual wine drinker. Regularly priced at $21, this Chardonnay is available to Naked Wine Angels for $11.99. You can't beat it. So, armed with your bites and your wine, bon appetit, murder bookies. Our true crime book awaits us. Now, at a previous CrimeCon, I met the author of A Tangled Web, Leslie Rule, and we spoke about her mother, Anne Rule, the queen of the true crime genre. But this book is all Leslie, who weaves the dark, twisted tale of a predator that no one saw coming. Oh, I pray I have done this book justice, because it is truly a doozy of a case. It opens on December 5th, 2015. The 911 call came in at 6:41 p.m. with an emergency vehicle dispatched to Big Lake Park in Council Bluffs, Iowa, where a woman named Shanna had gone to clear her head. Contemplating her life, her man problems, Shanna first saw a shadow and then a voice telling her to get down, that she was going to be shot, and a bang rang out. This event was enveloped in a quote, a horror that tiptoed so quietly into the lives it ruined that no one saw it coming, end quote. Now, Dave Kroupa had been with Amy Flora for 12 years, with whom he'd had 2 great kids. They really wanted it to work, striving to make it work. But it came that they had to accept that they were better off as friends. At this point, Dave was still hurting and regularly visiting the kids, but living in a dumpy apartment. Managing a tire shop took up his time, but he was still lonely. I mean, he hadn't dated in years. At 34, he was attractive, healthy, and he accepted that he was going to have to make an effort to socialize. And finally doing so, he realized that meeting women was actually not that difficult. There were thousands of dating profiles at his fingertips. However, he was also an honest and upfront guy. He was not looking for commitment, period. Now, Dave felt at ease navigating through Plenty of Fish, which at the time claimed to be the largest dating venue in the world, with 14 million daily visitors, and the basic membership was free. Each profile had a photograph, a nickname, and general information about the person. Of course, not everyone is honest or using a current photograph or even their photograph at all. And some can lie and create fake profiles and wind up hurting others. Meeting strangers online can also create a sense of familiarity after only a few hours of chatting. Nevertheless, many women will only meet in public for a first date, while some take photographs of license plates, forwarding these photos to friends in case they go missing. I think that's genius, by the way. Now, Dave Kroupa had heard about the precautions women take, and he understood. He had previously served in the National Guard, so he wasn't really concerned about himself, although some of the ladies he chatted with had jealous exes. For every online dating horror story, there were thousands of positive, successful connections resulting in marriage. In 2021, 50% of American couples had met online, according to social demographer Michael J. Rosenfeld. And this has been consistent since 2017. And specifically, 25 to 30% of couples had met on dating apps. Dave was in the forefront of this developing trend. Most dates consisted of a cup of coffee, realizing they had no chemistry, and parting. Leslie Rule writes that, quote, "Females are drawn to Dave. He exudes a kind of masculine confidence that comes with humility. At his core, he is so sure of who he is that he has no need for arrogance." End quote. While Dave was a red-blooded man in his prime, he wasn't seeking casual sex with a large number of women. His ideal would be to date several women, enjoy being with them, with no demands on him, and for them to be as free as he to do what they wanted. However, few women were up for this kind of whimsical relationship. Dave didn't want to hurt anyone, and he made it crystal clear that he was not looking for a life partner. Most smiled, nodded, and when he pulled away after a few dates, they were hurt. But Dave was being honest. He was not playing games. But someone else was. A very dangerous game indeed. As the presidential debates between Jimmy Carter and Gerald Ford unfolded, David Alexander Kroupa was born in October 1976 in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, to Tom and Trish Kroupa. The eldest of three boys, Dave grew up alongside his brothers Adam and Max. Their household reminiscent of the 1950s sitcom Leave It to Beaver, espousing traditional family values. Living in a warm home with shuttered windows and a spacious backyard, the sidewalks were shaded by tall, leafy, deciduous trees, and my fifth grade teacher, Mrs. Calderon, would be so proud of me for remembering the name of those trees. In the summer, gardens flourished. In the fall, carved pumpkins lined the streets during Halloween, and Christmas decorations twinkled from December into the New Year. Happily married for over 45 years, Tom and Trish worked to give their boys a wonderful life. Dad, Tom, worked for a print company, retiring after 40 years, while Mom, Trish, spent 37 years in a county veteran service office, helping veterans process their benefit claims. Dave cherished those innocent days when the only crime that touched his life was when Dad's fishing tackle was stolen. In high school, Dave enjoyed playing football and was quite good at it until he broke a leg during practice, ending his football career. After that, he went through a rebellious period, growing his hair long and hanging out with questionable people, even sporting a mohawk for a time. But despite this, he never got into any trouble. After graduation, Dave joined the National Guard for a couple years. While living in Denver, he started college and graduated with an associate's degree in automotive engineering. Upon moving back to Sioux Falls, Dave focused on what he knew best, fixing cars. He took a job at a truck stop gas station in Council Bluffs, Iowa, where he met Amy Flora, a petite, sweet girl. Their daughter, Callista, was born in 2001, followed by their son, Trey, 2 years later. When Dave got a promotion, they settled into Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Amy, however, was not happy there. She missed her family in Iowa, and she longed for the security that comes with marriage. In contrast, Dave viewed marriage as a trap. Frustrated that the father of her 2 children did not want to marry her, Amy's resentment grew, resulting in increasingly heated arguments over time. To manage their responsibilities, they worked opposite shifts to ensure that one parent was always with the kids, which severely limited their fun time together as they struggled to make ends meet. Overwhelmed by stress, the family decided to move back to Council Bluffs. Reunited with her family, Amy felt happier, but her relationship with Dave had deteriorated, and after a decade together, they ultimately chose to part ways. The year 2012 was particularly challenging for Dave. He moved into an apartment with no furniture in Omaha, Nebraska, the birthplace of President Gerald Ford. Nebraska faces harsh blizzards and an average of 57 tornadoes each year, earning the Midwest nickname Tornado Alley. The Missouri River separates Nebraska and Iowa, but Omaha and Council Bluffs are connected by bridges, with hardworking residents cheering for rival football teams, the Huskers and the Hawkeyes. After moving, knowing only Amy's family and friends, Dave sought some new connections and decided to check out Plenty of Fish. Soon, he began chatting with Liz and arranged to meet her at Perkins. Although he felt like a fish out of water, given he hadn't dated in a decade, he found Liz, an attractive brunette, enjoyable. They discovered they both had 2 kids around the same age. Dave clearly explained that he was not looking for a serious relationship. Liz agreed, as her life was busy with her kids, pets, and her cleaning business. After 4 or 5 dates, Dave kissed Liz, who playfully asked him why it had taken him so long. They became intimate that night and continued to have sex on their dates. Liz liked him, was enthusiastic, and he found her easy to be with. But he needed intellectual conversation about daily events, and that was not Liz. He continued to scroll through the profiles on Plenty of Fish. Liz now wanted more than Dave was willing to give, as she became clingy and asked him what he was doing in the evenings she wasn't with him. Dave declined to answer, as this was his business. He continued going out on dates, with some spawning a second or third date, and some not. He was very, very clear, quote, he had no objection to sex with Liz, but she had to understand that that's all it was. He was going to see other women. He is not Liz's boyfriend, and he never would be. We are not going to ever be together, end quote. And a pattern emerged. He would tell Liz that he had a date that night, and she would drop by his place wanting sex, which he readily provided. Then it hit him. She was trying to wear him out so he would be less likely to pursue this with someone else. He reminded Liz again that this was never going to be a serious relationship, and he encouraged her to go out and have some fun. Liz insisted that she just wasn't like that. In fact, she claimed that she had deleted her account from Plenty of Fish. Well, Dave continued dating and enjoying his bachelorhood. And meanwhile, Liz made their sex life sizzle. One time she pulled him off the path in a public park, clawing at his jeans. Liz was attractive and fun. But that changed when she objected to the time Dave spent with his kids, and thus his ex, Amy. The thing was that Dave and Amy were kind of on the outs, just meeting to exchange kids. And Liz became passive-aggressive, nagging Dave, who ignored her rather than argue. Despite reminding her that they were not a couple and he wasn't in love with her, Liz just didn't give up. So I had to ask myself, should Dave have just ended things with Liz? Probably, but he was being kind-hearted. He really didn't want to be a hurtful jerk. And maybe Liz would give up and quietly go away so that he didn't need to be cruel to her. Well, in September 2012, Liz insisted on having a serious conversation about their relationship. I'm doing a huge eye roll here. How did he feel about her? Well, Dave was irritated. Repeating his mantra, Dave said she was attractive, fun, and he cared about her, but would never commit to her. But what Liz heard was that Dave cared about her, and he must be afraid to show his feelings. Dave was even more irritated. She started to express herself when she sent him lengthy texts and emails. Liz suggested a 4-week commitment as a fresh start that could possibly move their relationship forward. Grimacing, Dave ignored this idea. When Liz asked if she should just go away, he repeated that as long as she didn't expect any more, he enjoyed spending time with her. Dave believed he was very clear about their lack of a future while avoiding being mean. And let's be honest, he liked the sex with her. Well, this back and forth went on for weeks. Liz trying to pin Dave down and him saying he did not want to be monogamous. She needed to drop the subject. But that didn't happen. For every 100 words Liz messaged Dave, he replied with 1. Despite their months of dating, he consistently denied her requests for more. Feeling entitled to more after dating all of these months, she wrote, quote, "What do I need to do to get you to take a chance?" End quote. Before he could even respond, another email from her arrived. Quote, "Hearing no makes me wonder what's wrong with me. After 4 months, I expect more from you. We take small steps forward, and then you go to Amy, and we take 10 steps back." End quote. Exasperated, Dave tried to clarify that Amy was the mother of his kids and had nothing to do with Liz or her issues. Okay, there's no way I would have been this patient. Absolutely no way. Liz believed with her heart and soul that after a month trial of commitment, Dave's eyes would open and everything would be glorious. But Dave made it clear he would not care if she ended things. As Liz was continuing to ask for this 4-week trial commitment, Dave was already seeing Cari. Incredibly smart, funny, sexy. She was the only woman since his breakup with Amy that really caught his attention. And she was a customer who brought her Ford Explorer into Hyatt Tire for a minor repair. They met the old-fashioned way. Meeting Cari, Dave was instantly smitten. Cari was, quote, "tall, slender, with twinkling hazel eyes. A powerful energy crackled between them as they met each other's gaze," end quote. He restrained himself from asking her out because he was at work and that would be inappropriate. But 2 weeks later, he noticed Cari's profile on Plenty of Fish. After chatting a few weeks later, they exchanged phone numbers. Now, Dave hadn't really dated anybody except Liz in this last month, and he had really gotten tired of her nagging. But Dave was also obligated to attend a costume party with Liz, in matching togas nonetheless, and she seemed to act like she expected him to drop on a bended knee. Well, she was sorely disappointed at his reaction. She knew his mind was on someone else. 3 nights later, Dave was enjoying a great time with Cari at Applebee's Bar and Grill. He found her funny and witty and learned she worked for West Corporation in Nebraska. A twice-divorced mother, she lived in Macedonia, Iowa, with her teenage son, Maxwell. So it was a long 48-minute commute for her. Well, as they were chatting, Dave's phone buzzed with 20 texts and calls, from Liz. He ignored them to focus on Cari, but eventually he stepped away to call Liz. Liz said she had left some things at his apartment and she wanted them. Well, right now? Well, yes, she did, even though he knew she had left them there weeks ago. He informed her that he was on a date and asked her to leave him alone. Back to Cari. Their rapport was terrific, and Dave invited her over to play cards or watch TV. Excepting they were barely inside when Dave's phone began incessantly ringing again, and the security doorbell was buzzing. Yup, it was Liz. The loud, awful buzzer required Dave to go down to his building's vestibule, finding an insistent Liz. She needed her stuff no matter if he had a date or not. Defeated, Dave explained to Cari that he had a situation. A woman that he had been dating was here and was refusing to leave. And Cari rolled with this development, and Dave would recall what a great sport she was about it. Laughing it off, Cari said, quote, "We've all been there. Give me a call when you get it straightened out," end quote. Not flustered one bit. She passed a pouting Liz as she left, neither acknowledging the other. Liz rushed inside, gathering up her things, and they launched into a heated discussion. Stuff gathered, now Liz didn't want to leave. Talking, crying, and arguing ensued, and Dave asked Liz to leave. Frustrated because she'd ruined his date with Cari, Dave took 10 minutes to calm down. He then called Cari to apologize, with her inviting him to come over. It was still early, so Dave accepted, and a smiling, bubbly Cari greeted him at her charming cottage door with fresh brewed coffee. Built in the 1870s, this cottage had once belonged to her grandparents. Mixing antiques with newer furniture, the place had a warm, cozy feeling. Her son, Maxwell, he was over visiting her grandparents. Dave saw that Cari was, quote, easygoing, beautiful, funny, and brainy, exceptionally smart. There was a powerful attraction between them, end quote. As they kissed, she pulled back. She had to tell him something. Divorced twice, she also had a crazy ex-boyfriend that she had to take a restraining order against. So she was not ready to get tied down again. And Dave was thrilled. Cari was perfect. She sought fun and excitement without any relationship expectations. After weeks of Liz's nagging, Cari was a refreshing change. They enjoyed their chemistry whenever their busy schedules allowed. However, Liz would not let go. On November 1st, she sent a long, rambling email. Well, here's the short version of it. Quote, "I guess I need closure. Do I forget everything about us? I'm going to date others, though no one catches my eye. Do I get to hope that time makes the heart grow fonder? Do you want me to go and never come back?" End quote. I'm reading, shouting, "Tell her to go. Never come back. Come on, Dave." And again, before he could even respond, another email arrived with more nonsense. 24 hours later, Liz was offended that he hadn't bothered to respond. Quote, "Well, thank you for no response. I get the answer. That's it. Later." End quote. Well, Dave was off busy enjoying time with Cari, and he hadn't even checked his email. As Cari began spending more time at Dave's place, decorated with cast-offs and garage sale finds, he decided to fix it up. His big, ugly couch had become a running joke between the two of them. Loving the style of Cari's home, she helped him find a new love seat to replace the big, ugly one. Meanwhile, Dave worked on Cari's old Volkswagen, getting it into good shape. A week or so had passed, and Liz now called him about her pots and pans. While he offered to drop them off, on arriving at Liz's, she was barely dressed, brushed up against him provocatively, and they wound up having sex right there in the foyer. Well, it didn't mean much to Dave, who believed his relationship with Liz was over, and he went about seeing Cari. 2 days later, Liz emailed Dave trying to arrange a dinner date, and she tried to not seem desperate because she was just so busy. Later, when a prosecutor asked Dave about this date, he thought that he had likely gone, and yes, this was during the time that he was seeing Cari. Only one person sensed something terrible was looming, with no one realizing that their every move, every action would later be scrutinized. Now, in 2020, when A Tangled Web was published, 68% of Americans use social media, and the number had risen to 73% by 2023, according to the latest Pew Research Center data. By the fall of 2012, Facebook had over 1 billion active users, allowing people to connect with family, friends, as well as meeting new people. But remember, we know that social media can be dangerous. There are scammers and trolls creating false profiles, and some online interactions can have grave, real-world consequences, including abuse, molestation, and even murder. In this context, Cari received a Facebook request from Sam Carter. Although she didn't recognize the name, it seemed familiar. Sam Carter was a man in his 40s with thick black hair and a nice smile. He wore a black suit and a red tie. He was from Cari's hometown of Macedonia, Iowa, with a population of 240. She noted he had spelled Macedonia, Mecedonia, instead of the correct Macedonia. Now, to many, this would be a red flag, but Cari was a nice, kind person who didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings, although she did not accept the friend request. After spending the night with Dave, she wondered about this and messaged Sam asking, quote, "Do I know you?" End quote. Cari was now staying at Dave's as his place was convenient. She literally worked 3 blocks away. Working on a huge project for West Corporation, staying at Dave's saved her a daily 2-hour commute. And it was fine with her son Max, who enjoyed spending time with his grandparents, Cari's mom and stepfather, Nancy and Mark Rainey, who also lived in Macedonia. They lent a hand, helping to take Max to football practice, easing Cari's responsibilities. He was very athletic, and Cari attended all of his football, basketball, and baseball games regularly. This week, however, she would miss the game, but the big project would be finished shortly. In the 2 weeks since their first date, Cari and Dave had spent time together without any disagreements. Their relationship felt fresh and exciting, and Dave admired Cari's tenderheartedness, loyalty, and her ability to tolerate all kinds of people. Ever since she was a child, Cari had stood up for the underdog, not letting bullies get away with bullying. Good for her. Quote, "Her non-judgmental attitude was one of the things that made her many friends love her so much. They knew they could tell her anything and she wouldn't criticize them or raise her eyebrows. It is a tragic irony that the kindest people are the most easily manipulated by those with dark intentions." Cari had probably never thought about that. She certainly was not worrying about it on the morning of November 13th, 2012. End quote. Cari got up with Dave, who had to be to work by 6:30 a.m. Coffee in hand, she flipped on her laptop and began working on the coding project. Dave recalls, quote, "She was on the couch in her pajamas. She had all of her work-related stuff surrounding her, happy and carefree," end quote. Heading to Hyatt Tire, Dave said that he would see her that night. Little did he realize that soon he would come to detest Cari Farber. West Corporation supervisor, Colleen Whitner, was taken aback when Cari Farber didn't show up to work the next day, as she had always been reliable. Though she had called in at 6:15 with a coding update, her colleagues needed her to verify it when she arrived. Around noon, Colleen called and left a voicemail asking if she was okay and why she hadn't contacted anyone. Despite multiple attempts to reach her, there was no response. However, her digital footprint showed she had logged into Facebook at 6:42 a.m. At 9:54 a.m., she logged into Facebook and unfriended Dave Kroupa, which was weird. About 20 minutes later, Dave received a text from Cari asking if they should move in together. Well, shocked, he replied, no, knowing she was aware that he did not want that. 20 seconds later, she shot back a text, quote, "Fine, fuck you. I'm seeing somebody else. Don't contact me again. I hate you," end quote. Well, busy at work, Dave didn't have time to respond. And when he got home, he peered around his apartment, wondering if Cari was there. She wasn't, nor were there any signs she had ever been there, which was typical. She always cleaned up after herself, unlike Liz, who had left her toothbrush and clothes and pots and pans everywhere. The sudden breakup was puzzling. She had been calm and happy that morning and then turned into an irrational, angry, hostile person just hours later. Well, Dave shook his head, both feeling disturbed and relieved. Maybe he had dodged a bullet. This quick collapse of a promising relationship reinforced his choice to avoid commitments. It hurt a little, but at least he wouldn't have to think about her again. Yeah, well, only if it were that simple. 40 minutes west, Nancy Rainey was concerned about her daughter Cari's erratic behavior. She had just received a text saying she had accepted a new job. Confused, Nancy thought she loved her current job. Well, yes, she was eager to finish the big project before her brother John's wedding this weekend, where Max was going to be an usher. Cari's family had moved this wedding date up because her father, Dennis Farber, was dying of stomach cancer, and they wanted him there. Cari was very close to her dad and frequently took Max to visit with him. So confused, Nancy needed to know when Cari was going to pick up Max so that she could drive to Des Moines, Iowa, check into the hotel, and attend the rehearsal dinner that Friday night. And then the wedding was the next day on Saturday. However, Cari never called. Cari's father attended the rehearsal, but was actually too ill to go to the wedding. And everyone understood this, but it raised the question, where was Cari? Was there an accident? Max kept glancing at the door, hoping his mom would walk into the reception, but she never arrived. Later, Cari also missed a baby shower she was hosting for her best friend, Amber Jones. Cari was silent. Nancy explained, quote, "By Friday, I had decided something was definitely wrong, and we reported her missing," end quote. The Pottawatomie County Sheriff Officer did not share Nancy's urgency as he took the report. Her daughter had missed 2 events and hadn't called her mom in a week, but she was a grown woman. Nancy stressed that this was not typical behavior for Cari, but this wasn't the first time an officer's eyes glazed over, dealing with a paranoid parent and perhaps a control freak. Only time would tell whose instincts were spot on. It took a long time for Nancy's concerns to be taken seriously, and even longer for investigators to examine Cari's Facebook activity. They eventually found a notable exchange of private messages between Cari and Sam Carter, which initially appeared to be ordinary posts. Sam told Cari that they had attended Iowa Western Community College together, and she replied, "I remember you." However, the following message, quote, "You still as pretty," end quote, was grammatically incorrect and poorly spelled for a college graduate. Detectives also noted that Cari had rejected a friend request from Amber Mildo, a slender blonde in her 30s who wore large sunglasses, just a week before Sam contacted her. Well, this raised the question, why did she reject Amber? Also of note, both Amber and Sam misspelled their hometown, Macedonia. An hour after sending the friend request to Cari, Amber Mildo posted about partying in Macedonia, which seemed absurd for a small town known for family life. With its historic buildings, a restaurant, a community theater, a museum, post office, and city hall, Macedonia was tame. It was not a partying locale. And no Macedonian knew Amber Mildo, though everybody recognized Cari Farber, who had deep family roots dating back multiple generations through her mom, Nancy Bisbee Rainey. Now, Leslie Rule speculates whether Cari's kindness might be inherited. In November 2011, a meta-study reported by the Huffington Post suggested a genetic variant linked to caring behavior. Well, intrigued, I looked into a 2022 study from the National Library of Medicine that examined the CTRA gene associated with adversity. It investigated whether acts of kindness towards others, rather than oneself, impacted the gene's adversity expression. The results indicated that performing kindness for others did reduce this gene's expression, thus reducing adversity. The study concluded, quote, pro-social engagement, doing something kind for others rather than oneself, reduces CTRA gene expression. The nature of kind acts and their intended recipient play a key role in shaping the genomic impact of kindness, end quote. So this do a random act of kindness thing works. Leslie Rule then delves into the immediate ancestors of Cari, and this is likely the most heartwarming part of the book, and you simply have to read it because it brought me to happy tears. So just note that Cari came from a long line of generous, kind people. But not everybody is kind. In November, detectives were in Macedonia because someone had vandalized Cari's SUV parked at the cottage where she lived. Dave had looked at it and it was in perfect condition, but now it was found to be spray painted all over and keyed. Uncertain when it happened, Cari and Max spent time on November 11th cleaning it with elbow grease and WD-40. Nancy saw that Cari was upset that someone had done this, but outwardly she remained cheerful. Cari then shared this vandalism on Facebook. Not long later, she accepted a friend request from Sam Carter and deleted Dave Kroupa. Later, she followed up on the vandalism post saying, quote, it turned out just to be kids, end quote. Though none of her family knew anything about that revelation. Which kids? What kids? Whose kids? But with no evidence of danger, Cari's missing person report was deemed a low priority by Pottawatomie County. They did process it, officially listing her as missing, and entered her information into the National Crime Information Center database. If an officer from anywhere encountered her and checked her driver's license, it would indicate that she was missing. Quote, Cari Leah Farber was one of the 661,593 people reported missing in the U.S. in 2012. By the end of the year, all but 2,079 would be accounted for, and it was an average year as far as missing persons go. As usual, many of the absent adults had not met with danger, but had taken off for their own reasons. Once located, many were surprised to learn that anyone had been worried. end quote. Police often rely on these statistics, assuming missing persons will reappear until they don't. But this is a heartbreaking situation. But note, police immediately conduct searches for missing children. Unless there is some suspicious circumstances, they may be slow to act on missing adult cases. On November 13th, 2012, Dave was still reeling from this sudden breakup with Cari when he received a bizarre and angry text from her. The message was filled with glaring grammatical and spelling errors and referred to Liz as, quote, a fat, ugly whore, end quote. Dave was baffled. Cari had seemed so easygoing when Liz interrupted their date. Was this all an act to lure him in? Then Liz called, complaining that Dave's unstable ex was harassing her. Dave was shocked to hear that someone had broken into Liz's garage and scrawled, quote, whore of Dave, end quote, on her wall. But wait, how had Cari gotten Liz's phone number, and how did she know where Liz lived? Well, Dave hadn't expected to see Liz again, but now he felt obligated to apologize, especially since Liz was clearly upset about being dragged into this situation, saying, quote, the world is filled with nuts, and it was their bad luck to encounter one, end quote. In addition to the graffiti, some old checks had been stolen, with Liz reporting the vandalism and theft to the Omaha Police Department. Later that night, Dave and Liz received an email from Cari, taunting them. At the same time, Nancy Rainey was texted a photo of a $5,000 check made out to Cari from Shanna E. Goyler, confirming that Cari had sold her bedroom set and instructing Nancy to let the buyer pick it up. Shocked, Nancy recognized that the set included great-grandma Mabel's antique dresser. This could not be happening. She quickly texted back, quote, I need to hear your voice first, so I know it's really you, end quote. There was no way Nancy was going to permit some stranger to come in and take Cari's belongings. The hostile text now accused her of being a bad mother, leaving Nancy baffled and hurting. And the grammar was off, sloppy, unlike Cari, who would never sell her family heirloom and always communicated clearly what was going on. Nancy called the sheriff's office again and spoke with Deputy Carl Reister, who noted the missing commas in the odd text, but he didn't see an immediate cause for action. Now Nancy mentioned to Deputy Reister that Cari had previously been diagnosed with anxiety and bipolar I disorders, a mental illness characterized by extreme mood swings. However, Cari had never exhibited the outrageous behavior, leading Nancy to suspect a misdiagnosis, as other doctors had not labeled her daughter as bipolar. Okay, as of 2025, there are about 20% of Americans, or around 40 million people, suffer from anxiety. And while Cari's episodes of anxiety were severe, this is not all that uncommon. But when the police discovered that Cari was bipolar, they immediately understood this scenario, having seen it before. Her daughter was off her meds and had flipped out. It happens all the time. And Nancy had to wonder if they were right. Had Cari gone off the deep end? Although she had never done this before, Cari had left her medication behind in the bathroom medicine cabinet. But still, Nancy doubted that this was a breakdown. Was Cari being held against her will, forced to send these texts? Were the grammatical errors a signal for help? Had her ex, from whom she'd gotten the restraining order, resurfaced? Well, that seemed unlikely after so many years. But what about this new guy, Dave? As these thoughts swirled, Nancy felt increasingly troubled, unaware that Dave was also receiving hostile texts from Cari. Please keep in mind, Dave lives in Nebraska and Nancy Rainey lives in Iowa. where there are two different law enforcement agencies in different states investigating, and they're investigating two very different cases. It is a missing person case in Iowa and a vandalism theft case in Nebraska. Iowa authorities thought Cari had left of her own accord, while Nebraska viewed Liz's complaint as an isolated incident. Neither suspected a connection to a more serious crime. November 19th. Despite Nancy Rainey's concern that her fears had been dismissed, Pottawatomie County Deputy Sheriff Randall Phillips began investigating the missing person case of Cari Farver. With 12 years' experience, Phillips had handled many cases of runaway teens, but faced a different situation here. Cari was an adult. Corporal Robert Ambrose assisted Phillips in reviewing Cari's case and interviewed her supervisor, Colleen Whitner. Co-workers had last seen Cari on Monday, November 12th, so a week or so ago, as she smiled and chatted when they left work, saying that she would see them tomorrow. However, she had never showed up. A few days later, her supervisor received a resignation text from Cari stating she was moving to Kansas City for a new job. Wait, she resigned in a text? That seems weird to me. Investigators examined Cari's cell phone to track her whereabouts. Back in 2012, the U.S. had about 300,000 cellular towers for 300 million phones, allowing law enforcement to trace the phone pings like following a trail of breadcrumbs. On November 18th, with Verizon's help, police found Cari's phone signals in Omaha, specifically a few blocks north of the West Center Road and 114th Street intersection. However, Cari's black Ford Explorer SUV was not found in the area. The phone later moved about a 2-minute drive west, sending 13 texts over the past 24 hours, the last at 11 a.m. that morning. Narrowing in on the residential area, Detective Phillips canvassed but could not locate the car. He also studied the check photo provided by Nancy Rainey, which appeared to be a starter check with the signature Shanna Elizabeth Golar on it. Well, who the heck was this, thought Phillips. Searching the records, Shanna Golar lived in the area where Cari's cell phone pinged, south of West Center Street in a split-level home receiving Section 8 housing assistance. With no one home, Phillips left a message and Shanna called back the next day. During the call, he learned about a love triangle involving Shanna, Cari, and Dave Kroupa. Shanna claimed that Cari blamed her for the breakup and was harassing her. As for the $5,000 check, Shanna had been robbed, her check stolen. She'd reported the vandalism to the police as well. Now, if this is sounding a little familiar, that's because Shanna Elizabeth Golar is Liz, and she provided Dave Kroupa's contact information to the police, noting that he lived just north of her home. The next day, when the deputy spoke with Dave, he told Phillips that he had been receiving harassing texts from Cari. This was stalker behavior, and it explained why Cari's phone had pinged near Liz's neighborhood. Was she hiding there to confront her rival? If someone had stolen her phone, it didn't make sense for them to pretend to be Cari and to torment those involved in a love triangle. So Phillips concluded that Cari was a woman scorned, and Dave was now disturbed to learn that Cari was missing and promised to inform the police if she showed up. Then Deputy Phillips received a text from Cari. Yes, the deputy himself. She said she didn't care about being reported missing and was leaving the state. He warned her that regardless of the state, she could be detained until her missing person status was resolved. And Cari responded, quote, "Dave texted me and said you had the sheriff at his work. Please stop talking to people. I have nothing to say to anyone. I want one person to go away for destroying everything for me, end quote, which sounded threatening, supporting Shanna's claim of harassment. Phillips then asked Shanna to do a report so that it would be on file. Grateful, Liz now shared a text from Cari, who admitted to stealing her check in an attempt to implicate her, trying to keep Liz and Dave apart. And this confirmed to Phillips that Cari had left of her own volition and perhaps had had a psychotic break or something. An anxious Liz then told Dave that the police were worried his ex might harm her. Dave was becoming increasingly overwhelmed, receiving 60 texts and emails a day. He'd come home and try to relax in his chair and then receive a text. Quote, I see you in the chair with your feet propped up. You're wearing your blue shirt. End quote. And holy crap, he was wearing his blue shirt in his chair with his feet propped up. Running outside, he'd look for Cari, but the wooded area he lived in was not helpful. More messages came in, such as, quote, you got out of the shower. I see you, end quote. It was downright creepy. Every aspect of Dave's life felt invaded. When the call and hang-up started at his job, he was nearly fired. Some texts mentioned Amy and the kids, which made him worry for their safety. Amy was also concerned. Her ex had brought this crazy woman into their lives. Their kids, Callista now 12 and Trey 10, and Dave was watching them like a hawk, fearful of what might happen if she chose to lash out at them. Well, Dave and Liz started dating again because only they understood what it was like to have this crazy stalker, finding comfort in each other. Their previous conflicts now seemed trivial. While they were hanging out and watching a movie, their cell phones would beep simultaneously, notifying them of an incoming harassing text or email. Cari seemed to have forgotten that she broke up with Dave while continuing to threaten Liz and any other woman he brought into his life, ending her message with, quote, I hope we see each other soon, end quote. Oh God, that gave me chills. On Facebook, Cari posted of her new job in Kansas City and mentioned her great guy, Dave Kroupa, and said she wanted her son to move there, which alarmed Nancy. Did Cari want to take Max away? Old Cari knew that Maxwell's life in Macedonia was filled with his friends, family, and his beloved sports. Uprooting him was not an option, so Cari had endured that long commute from Macedonia to Omaha, Nebraska instead. Nancy thought two things. If Cari were dead, then Max needed her as his fiercest protector. If Cari were alive and had flipped out, Max needed her as his fiercest protector. Feeling overwhelmed with guilt, Nancy and her husband Mark decided to become Max's legal guardians, deeply concerned about Cari's reaction. And this happened on November 29th, 2012. The day after Cari Farber's 38th birthday, her mother revisited memories of that day. Calm, composed, baby Cari had arrived. On her second day of life, Cari was sleeping through the night, a sharp contrast with her older brother Adam, who had suffered from colic. A new mom, Nancy had suffered from postpartum depression with Adam and didn't sleep well for a year. Now she was relieved that the nights with newborn Cari were so peaceful. With her serene blue eyes, Cari seemed to possess an old soul. When Adam was 4 and Cari 18 months, Nancy and Dennis Farber divorced. Years later, Nancy reconnected with her first love, Mark Rainey, and together, all the parents worked to ensure that Adam and Cari were raised in loving homes. Cari didn't speak until she was 3, but then she began speaking in complete sentences. Her brilliance shone in elementary school, where at 6, she was already reading her classmates' books. As a teenager, Cari rebelled by staying out all night and drinking, disrupting Nancy's 39th birthday. But after a summer of being grounded, she had learned her lesson, although the usual teenage parent arguments occurred, partly due to her free-spirited nature. In college at the University of Kansas, Cari enjoyed partying, but never got into trouble. And it was there she met Maxwell's father, Frank. And it was fantastic and romantic until the puppy love wore off, but Cari was pregnant. She and Frank tried to stay together, but it wasn't meant to be. As a young single mother, Nancy worried, but encouraged Cari to pursue a more lucrative career path. With an aptitude for computers, Grandpa Max and Grandma Luann funded her 6-month-long computer course. Maxwell was born in December 1997, and shortly thereafter, Cari graduated, securing a great job. Nancy's doubts about her daughter vanished as Cari nurtured her baby boy. She knew Cari would fiercely protect her child. But now? How could she walk out on Max now? It made no sense. December 3rd, 2012, Nancy received another text. Cari's Ford Explorer was missing. Since it was registered in Nancy and Mark's names, they were liable for any accidents that could happen, and they reported it stolen. But they hoped this car might potentially lead them to Cari. Meanwhile, Dave was searching his area for Cari's car. Her stalking was making his life miserable. Driving the neighborhood, he didn't see her. They had only been together for 2 weeks before Cari's behavior changed so dramatically. Had he known her better, he would have realized that Cari would never leave her dad, who was in hospice and was so close to the end. Nancy agonized over how to tell Denny that their daughter was missing. Her absence spoke volumes, however, as he knew Cari would never abandon him in his condition. Dennis Farver died on December 7th, 2012, and 3 days later, Maxwell turned 15, without a word from his mother. Nothing. At the funeral 5 days later in Newton, Iowa, Cari still didn't show up, leaving a devastated family even more deeply confused. As Christmas approached, Nancy and Mark tried to keep spirits up for Max's sake and got gifts for Cari in hopes that she would show up. On December 20th, the eve of the predicted Mayan apocalypse, a blizzard hit the Midwest, causing power outages across 13 states and a tragic 30-vehicle pileup on Interstate 35. While Nancy was worried about Cari's safety, Dave Kroupa was overwhelmed with dozens and dozens of hostile messages day in and day out, unable to find any peace. Why did she hate him so much? How did she go from being his perfect woman to a revenge-driven lunatic in just a few hours? Despite blocking her number, Dave received texts from untraceable numbers and emails linked to various versions of Cari's name, like Dave's girl Cari or Kroupa Cari 76. After changing his phone number, his stalker found the new one, which he had only shared with a few people, and Liz and Amy faced similar harassment. How was this invisible, obsessed antagonist able to watch and continue to contact them? It was diabolical. He and Liz grew closer, both being victims of crazy Cari, and it was easy to sympathize with each other. A desperate Liz actually emailed Cari, quote, "Just leave me alone. You want Dave that bad? Have him. I'm just so sick of this drama. I like Dave, but this is way too much. If seeing Dave is the problem, then I'll stop. I just want you and your craziness to go away. I can't take it anymore." End quote. But through all of this, Liz had proven to be a loyal friend to Dave, sticking with him through all of the stress and drama. Not long after Denny's death, he appeared to Nancy in a dream, looking strong and vibrant. And he told her, quote, "Nancy, she's with me," end quote, with an intensity that awakened Nancy, shaking her from the profound wonder of it all. She felt a soothing relief as the ache in her heart lessened, and she knew Cari was okay, not living, but with Denny in heaven. Reflecting on Denny's loving voice, Nancy felt certain that Cari's soul had survived whatever evil had befallen her. Yet, a dream was not proof, and she still held out hopes that Cari was among the living. Then Nancy opened her Facebook, and her heart skipped a beat. She saw a message from a new Cari page claiming she had been hacked, and she apologized for missing the funeral. She wrote, quote, "Mom, why aren't you talking to me anymore?" End quote. However, the text was filled with typos, and it didn't sound like Cari at all, ending with, quote, "You have Max, and I am grateful, but after all the cop stuff from before, I am done. I'm not 10 years old, Mom. I can leave him and move on with someone new," end quote. Oh, no way, Nancy thought. Cari would never leave Max. Soon after, a postcard appeared announcing that Dave and Cari were engaged, with a photo of a short, squat hand brandishing a diamond ring, looking nothing like Cari's long, slender fingers. Realizing this was an imposter, Nancy notified Deputy Phillips, who confirmed that Dave was definitely not engaged and planned to stay single. And that is where our story will pause. But no worries. Part 2, Hair on the Back of My Neck, will drop in 2 weeks as the harassment and stalking reaches new levels of sadism that will leave you aghast. Thank you for listening. I see you as you hear me. Always know how much I appreciate your input, because I can't do this without you, nor do I want to. Please take a few minutes to leave an awesome review that will help me make new murder bookies. Share my podcast. Talk about the episodes. Share your thoughts with me at jill@murdershelfbookclub.com. You can find me on X, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Links are on my blog. And you can still join Patreon for $2 to $4 a month at www.patreon.com/Murder Shelf Book Club. Don't forget, I'm teaching my serial killer class. If you're going to CrimeCon Las Vegas in May 2026, use my code MurderShelf, one word, all lowercase letters, and save yourself 10%. Hey, I will see you in 2 weeks. Written and produced by Jill, all rights reserved. Music, The Pewter Elephant by Blue Dot Sessions.